in 2010, all ages 47 million people had the CAD. And in 215, it has increased to 61. So it's a very large number. If you see the deaths, if you see deaths of all ages 2.3 million, it has increased to 2.9 million, and it is increasing further. If we see here, age less than 30 is a very important target for us. These are the young of our country, where the death is 12% and it has increased to 17%. And likewise, if we see the deaths, every day 900 Indians, they die of the heart disease. They were dying in 2010, and now they are 1150 we lost in 2015, and this data is increasing. So this is a very important eye-opener for us. Now, if we see Western data and Indian data, National Cholesterol Education Program ATP3 Adult Treatment Panel was introduced in 2001, and it was modified in 2004. And see the incidence of the CAD, total cardiovascular diseases, and the coronary heart disease have reduced. So this is a trend in US. If you see this trend in European countries, right from the 1970 till 2000, this trend of cardiovascular disease burden has reduced. So when we go further and see Indian trend, there is a 20% rise in coronary artery disease. Means Western countries, they are improving and we are deteriorating, and we have to see that why and what we need to do. So in 2020, it is projected 50% of the cardiac patient of whole of the world will be Indian. 40% deaths in India will be from the coronary heart disease. And is India set to be a heart disease capital of the world? It's a challenge for us that we save our fuels. So in an ICMR study, India B study, it was seen that Indians have a 72% of the prevalence is there to have a low HDL level. Means we are more prone. We always say HDL is a good cholesterol, but we don't consider anything good or bad, but HDL is less. If you see the triglyceride, we have a 29% of the prevalence of a high triglyceridemia, and we see that then LDL is 11.3. So this is the prevalence in this study that makes Indian prone to that. This is a study which we conducted in Delhi urban area schools, where 2,503 young school-going children were taken between 14 to 18, and we checked their cholesterol level, and we found that to a range of 23% of the students, they had a dyslipidemia. So these are the children, when they will reach before 30, they will have a coronary event. So if we prevent this, I think we can reduce the incidence of coronary events in the future. So compared to the ethnic groups, Southeast Asian countries, they have a higher prevalence of atherogenic dyslipidemia and a higher prevalence of traditional risk factor. Our risk factors are slightly different because we are tobacco chewers. We are not smokers much. The Western world is a smoker. So lack of awareness on CAD is another reason in our country. You ask anybody, go and get your cholesterol level, he will say, "Pagal hai. I'm fine. Why I need to do that?" So we also recommended on this that what should be done, and dietary factors are, we all know that we have a carbohydrate-based diet and proteins are very less. We live in a country where for the proteins, some of the communities, they are dependent on rats. They eat rats for the protein. So we need to do something that we have a more number of proteins. Physical activities, we know that, and but I must appreciate Aligarh Muslim University. You have a beautiful park here, and where you have to pay 5 rupees and you can use the park. I like that. So though he did not charge me any money, but I liked it that if you pay 5 rupee or a 1 rupee, you become stakeholder of that, and you will not spoil it. So if we see further, National Cholesterol Education Program, ATP adult type 3 update, they categorize the dyslipidemia and a high-risk category patients or a coronary artery disease with a risk equivalent to 10 years risk more than 20. So if they are at risk, so there 20% chance in a 10 years they will have a coronary heart event. So it doesn't mean that means 10 patients out of 100 will develop coronary heart event. So, but we don't know that which 10 will develop. So we cannot choose and pick these 10 and treat them with statins or the other treatment. So we have to take care of all the hundreds because we don't know which 10 will have the problem. So NCEP, they defined the target of cholesterol. If it is less than 100, should be the target, and less than 70 is a desirable in NCEP. Where the non-HDL cholesterol 130. And non-HDL is a very good marker these days, especially for Indians where the triglyceride levels are high, and even triglycerides are considered to be bad for the heart. So, if it's more than 100, NCEP says that if it's more than LDL 100, you must consider the therapy. And of course, we always do the therapeutic lifestyle change when the LDL is more than or equal to 100 milligram. But we suggest that lifestyle changes should be considered even if somebody is normal having cholesterol levels. Further, if we compare the guidelines available, that's American College of Cardiology, American Heart Association, and American Diabetes Association, and European Society for Atherosclerosis. What they say that treatment, they treat on a basis of a risk group. So risk group, high risk, moderate, or a low risk group, that will decide what should be the treatment. And the target to specific therapy is not specified in these two, where it says that LDL and non-HDL and FOB is to be considered as a target. So International Atherosclerosis Society does not say about it. All says that statin should be the treatment and alternative or add-on therapy. So they suggest European Society, maybe the bile acid sequestrant and cholesterol absorption inhibitor, that like ezetimibe, nicotinamide acid, fibrate, or omega-3 can be considered. So it's not that in all the patients, so again we have to see that what patients they really need add-on therapy. So NLA, National Lipid Association, US, is doing tremendous work, and they have released the guidelines. So they categorize the low, moderate, high, and very high risk. So these are the levels of the non-HDL and LDL. As I said, that non-HDL is also a very important marker to consider the outcome and the treatment. So these are the targets. So most of the guidelines says that 100 is a target, and if there is a very high risk means established atherosclerotic cardiovascular disease is there, diabetes mellitus is there, two other risk factors are there, or end organ damage is present, means patient is at very high risk. We should treat them intensively with a high intensity statins to keep the LDL level to less than 70. So we should always, when we calculate the risk, that what's the risk in 10 years, what will be the risk, or 20 years, what will be the risk. So it is suggested that it is better to calculate the life risk than a 10-year risk. Why to calculate only 10? So some calculators, they calculate for 10 year, 20 year, and some they calculate for a life. So Joint British Society recommendation to prevent the cardiovascular disease. So they preference LDL as a treatment goal for the lipid lowering therapy. What Indian experts feels on this? So this is how it was done at several places. Brainstorming sessions were done, and 153 experts, 18 states, 13 cities were involved in this. A total of 47 lakh rupees was spent by one person to generate this. No grant or nothing was spent. Each meeting was conducted in a standard format. Key issues of dyslipidemia management in the Indian first preventive form of feature were discussed, and discussion was based on the existing data on the epidemiology and RCT basis. And at the end of a discussion, a standardized questionnaire was given to all the participants, experts to record their opinion on the various aspects of the dyslipidemia. Just question, the expert who could not come, they were sent this and we collected the information. It was among us task to collect and gather and do all these things. So I'll discuss the important highlights and the recommendations. I will not go into the details. So the recommendation was universal screening of all Indians. This is very important because awareness level in a country is very low. And if we do that, by 20 years of age, what LAI, Lipid Association of India, recommends that at the time of a college, there should be a lipid profile estimation. And Lipid Association of India has extended this service, and we have recommended to the government also those who cannot get their lipid profile done at the time of admission to the college, Lipid Association of India will do it complimentary for them. So if we know this, that at the college somebody has a dyslipidemia, certainly sir, as you know, we can take preventive measures and we can prevent the cardiovascular events, which is troublesome. Most dangerous thing is cardiac event at a young age. So, rule on secondary causes of dyslipidemia. Fasting lipid profile is not mandatory, as we consider non-HDL to be that. Of course, when we say that triglyceride level can alter with the food, so triglyceride levels are itself a cardiovascular risk factor, so that can be done. Identify risk category based on the conventional and non-conventional risk factors. We all know that conventional and non-conventional risk factors. So highly selective CRP is a non-conventional risk factor, and the smoking and diabetes is a conventional risk factor. So if we see further, major risk factor for atherosclerosis, maybe age, male more than 45 and female more than 55 is the risk factor. And then CAD, first degree related, history of CAD in the family. If woman is 65 and there is a family first degree related, this can be considered. Then tobacco, and this is a risk factor for the Indians. And high blood pressure, if you see 140/90, so this we have to reconsider and see that how we can bring it to 120/80. I am for it that 120/80 should be a target so that we can prevent the complication of hypertension also. So, and this for the low intensity density lipoprotein cholesterol. So this is itself is a risk factor. Coronary calcification, non-conventional risk factor. We see that what is a coronary artery calcification, what is the calcium level, if it's more than 300 Augustin unit, it's a risk. A non-conventional carotid intima technique. If we see that at the first year of age, after the first year of age, the streak of fat, they keep on start accumulating in the intimal layer, means atherosclerotic changes takes place at a year 1 only. So we have to see that how much we can prevent and prevent the thickness. Various studies have shown that the statin decreases the IMT by 0.1 in a 3 months time. So that many studies are there which show the benefits. Presence of atheromatous plaque is a non-conventional risk factor. Aortic pulse wave velocity, high sensitivity C-reactive protein, more than 2 milligram liter, lipoprotein A, so which is associated with the LDL, and ApoB is associated with the LDL. So more the ApoB, more the LDL. So if you see the risk factor, I will not take much time. We all know that how we categorize the patients and how we decide the risk factor, and then we estimate the lifetime cardiovascular risk factor. Estimate lifetime cardiovascular risk factor, we know that calculating lifetime rather than the 10 years, high prevalence of CAD in young population, that's why we should understand and calculate for a lifelong. Short-term risk does not become high until later in the life, thereby losing opportunities for the timely prevention of CAD. And goal of the primary prevention is to reduce lifetime risk factor, not just 5 to 10 years as I said. Lifetime risk factor calculator are needed, and this is one of the risk time calculator. JBS, it can be accessed on online and we all can assess that what is our risk factor. So we have to fill the information, date of birth, and ethnic group, Indian, and if we fill all this information, and this includes the joint pain, also inflammatory joint pain, which is not there in any other. And this is a calculator which includes the Indian and Asian Britishes. So it has been considered that how Indians are at risk, because we know many Indians are there at risk. So this can be done. So sir, whenever you say time is less, I'll sum up. Okay? So I'll go faster. So these are the risk factors which we recommended, and these are the treatment goals. And now here, Lipid Association of India has made these levels more stringent. When we recommended that at a very high risk, you maintain 50, not 70. Other says, NLA says 70. Now the best part is, it has who is a part of NLA, he visited us and they agreed with our recommendations. Now they have recommended 55. But still we say that a 50 should be for a very good. And PCSK9 trials, you know it. And they have shown that if we reduce the LDL to 30 level, we pharmacologists don't agree with this. We basic science people don't agree with this. Because we always say that cholesterol is very important for so many things and that will be a problem. And PCSK9, where the LDL level was 30 and outcome was better, the chances of morbidity and mortality, it reduced. So these are our recommendations, and we considered the treatment when these are the findings, and we considered non-HDL also. So if somebody has a HDL of non-HDL cholesterol of 160 and LDL of 130, and lifestyle modification should be started as early as possible. Give a 3-month trial. If you feel that 3 months is not sufficient to control, then statins should be started with it. Primordial prevention is very important. We have to see that not only remove the prevention of the risk factors, but we have to see that reducing the likelihood of development of the risk factor. If somebody is staying in a social environment which is bad for the heart, we have to treat the social environment also for that. That's called the primordial prevention is considered. Further, we consider the lipid therapeutic lifestyle changes, which is very important. These days, our mobiles, they carry some software that how many steps we have walked. So normally we say 5,000 steps, but keep a target of 14,000 steps we all attempt, and we can do that. And if more, the more desirable. Appropriate diet is very important. Calorie reduction is very important. Many of us say that जब हम ज़्यादा बढ़ जाते हैं तो हम कहते हैं कि मैं तो सिर्फ प्रोटीन डाइट ही लेता हूँ. You take a pride of that I take only, I will not take carbohydrate, but protein will convert in a liver into a carbohydrate. So better you maintain a balanced diet, take your 27% of the calories from the protein and rest from your carbohydrate source. So we have to see the cost factor also. Smoking cessation is important, abstinence from alcohol. Many studies say that a moderate alcohol is good because it suits me and I say, but nothing is good. So physical activity, moderate, role of yoga, we all know. And targets of therapy, we considered LDL 50 milligram percent is safe. Statins are primary modality for reducing LDL, except in high risk and a very high risk group, start the moderate intensity. If it's a very high, you start with the moderate, low, build up the dose because tolerance at times is a problem with the statin, and myalgia and muscular dystrophy and all these are a problem. So we have to see that we develop the dose of a statin. But if patient has a high risk or very high risk, then consider moderate and go to the high dose. Risk benefit of the treatment of the patient should be evaluated. Lipid profile should be checked 3 to 6 months, not before that. So in our study, we studied that statins, they inhibit the HMG coenzyme A. So the inhibition of the enzyme reaches a plateau. If we keep on increasing the dose, I always differ from the cardiologist. They say give 40 atorva, give the statin. I always say that in my own study clinical trial we found if we inhibit HLG coenzyme A, or if there is a compliance of a 60% and 100%, there is no difference. Means alternative dose therapy also works. In another trial, we found that alternative dose of atorvastatin and rosuvastatin is as good as a daily. But of course, effect was more with the daily as compared to the alternative day. When we saw from the baseline, the effect was very good and highly significant, comparable reduction in LDL, and the lipid profile level was same. So add-on therapy, we can think of these drugs whenever needed. PPAR alpha we have discussed just now, that they have additional benefit apart from the diabetes. So saroglitazar is the one that lifestyle modification is needed. And if there is a statin intolerance, there is a definition of statin intolerance. There are protocols defined that what we have to do, how to identify the statin intolerance and how to treat and what the alternatives we have to see. So it should be taken care. Non-HDL, we have already discussed that, but is on non-HDL. So this is a LAI recommends as one of the four target for the treatment apart from the LDL. So we have to maintain this. Elevated triglycerides, if we see, we know that it's as a reason that non-HDL we consider. So it should be evaluated for a possible secondary cause of hypertriglyceridemia. So goal should be 150 and preferably 100. So it's difficult to maintain, but 14,000 steps we should certainly be able to do that. First step is to reduce the lifestyle modification, then reduce. This reduces by 50%. As I said, that it's very effective. Non-HDL correct the hypertriglyceridemia, and statins are treated for the choice of target, and this should be the target to achieve somewhere in between that, but it's good to maintain less than 100. 150 is also okay. So 500 fibrate should be added. We know that PPAR alpha fibrates the agonist and it decreases the triglyceride levels. So it is recommended that in a mixed dyslipidemia, statins with fibrates can be given. So I personally believe that it just has happened with the fibrates, because statin reduces the triglyceride, but we also need to decrease the triglycerides vigorously also. But anyway, when required, it's more than 500, and we need to add the fibrates. For the HDL, we know that there is no treatment for HDL except the exercise. So niacin, we know the problems of the niacin, sustained preparation of the niacin is available, but tolerance is a problem with that. So the physiological measures and that increases the exercise may increase the HDL. Understand HDL physiology may lead to therapeutic target quantitative modification of the HDL in the future. So in diabetes, we have already discussed that. Sure. So diabetes, Dr. Sunita has already discussed. So we always say that statin causes diabetes. This is a thing, and cardiologists, they always say that this problem with the statin is in pre-diabetic, not in diabetic. But I always argue with them and I say that don't use pre-diabetic, use glucose intolerance. Even if from 78 to 80 has happened, it's called glucose intolerance, not a pre-diabetic to diabetic. So recent studies shows that pre-diabetic, if take statin, within a year will become diabetic. So, but if otherwise, if it doesn't take statin, even otherwise after a year he had to become diabetic. So they try to save the statins, but my take is there's a glucose intolerance. We have discussed we have done clinical trials in a department where we have seen that it deranges and we have found the mechanisms also for that. So aggressive lifestyle is required. Myopathy we know, and statin-related hepatotoxicity we know. Primary prevention we know where we need, and recommendation in the statement are mandatory for a medical community. The opinion of the lipid experts that Clinicians should use the judgment and experience of a tailoring therapy for a patient. We pharmacologists are nobody. We can say about the drugs as the clinicians. Those were the most intelligent and they know inside out about the patient and the drugs. So detailed discussion of the patient prior to starting any medication and dyslipidemia is essential because we have to see that patient is able to tolerate the medication or not, lipid profile, renal function test and hepatic function should be done. Summary. So in a 20 years time, or the college admission should be checked, exclude secondary cause of dyslipidemia, ESVD assessment should be done for LAI has also uploaded algorithm for calculating the risk at its website. So use calculator preferably. JBS we know that it calculates the lifetime stratification to the various risk factors. LDL is a primary target for monitoring is important during treatment. LDL 50 is safe. So it sounds bad, but it's safe and NLA has agreed with us that 50 is a very good target. And with this, we are trying to harmonize these guidelines, Indian LAI guidelines in a Southeast Asia. 9th and 10th, we have a deliberation where the 35 experts from Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Indonesia, Nepal, and nearby country, Afghanistan, 4 people are coming and we are deliberating this that really they have a similar thing or a different. So primordial prevention is very important, public awareness is very important, and we have started going to the school and addressing the assemblies, you know. Of course you will say that what the children know about but we say them in assembly in such a way that how to prevent the heart disease, what to do, we say them basic life sports things, and along with that we say that we should avoid the junk food. So indirectly we give the message to the schools in Delhi. So omega-3 is debatable, we all know. Recommendation are nothing without implementation. Thank you very much for patience hearing. I do double the time. Thank you.
भाई साइड हो जाओ.
Thank you for the very informative speech. First of all, on the comparative data, which is mainly the question that is regarding the deaths occurring below 30 years of age, and also for the primordial prevention. See, most of us, we never think about the primordial prevention, but it is at 20 years of age that we should start this prevention. So that is very important. And also, a very new incubator which is having the alternate ones. So it is very, regarding the glucose intolerance and LDL-50 levels. Normally what we think about LDL-50 is 100. The expected range is 50.
Dr. Kamani will say it better, he is going to take a next talk. So he'll be talking more on LDL and...
So we invite any query or comments from the audience.
As you said, sir, the cardiologists prefer high dose of atorvastatins or statins. As you said, HIV-co-directed inhibition can be done at the lower doses. The HIV-co-directed inhibition can be done at the lower doses, but still they prefer high doses.
Yes.
So this is not to just control the non-HDL or the LDL, but to make the plaque stabilization. So they are using the high doses of the statins. Other thing is that when we already know that atorvastatin is one of the cause of the making the change in the glycemic parameters, then why we are not preferring other drug which is metabolically neutral, like pravastatin and other drugs?
See, it's a purview of a clinician to find which drug will suit the patient. So there are lipid soluble drugs, water soluble drugs. So the best drug which suits the patient may be pitavastatin, which is very commonly used and has a lesser side effect as compared to atorvastatin. Because still, if you see the maximum trial are been done with simvastatin. There is no match of the simvastatin, even as on date is a gold standard. But we have come to atorvastatin, now rosuvastatin, now the shift has gone to the pitavastatin, and of course there is a reason for going to it, longer half-life. Even the atorvastatin, if you see that metabolite is active, so that makes the atorvastatin longer active. But pitavastatin is very good, its adverse effects and tolerability is better.
Like your diabetes, dyslipidemia is also an issue. Should we initiate a lot of discussion? and Professor Ryan has very well covered all the aspects, and moreover he has given insight to that LAI
Yes.
guidelines. So definitely those guidelines will be useful to our Indian subset, because most of the guidelines. One more thing is that now we have about a dozen of guidelines for control of dyslipidemia, given by the NCP, given by the American Heart Association, given by the European Heart Society, Associated.
Diabetic Association also.
And the main game changer was the guidelines were given in 2013 by the American Heart Association, in which the view was quite divergent. Then forget about the LDL level, forget about the levels, and you just give the other high statin therapy or low statin, depending upon the clinical subsets. Those patients who are the high risk category, you give high dose, 40 to 80 milligram of this. And the low risk intermediate, give 10 to 20, irrespective of the LDL control. And recently in 2017, as the American Endocrinology Association, they have given, American College of Endocrinology also have given guidelines for diabetes. And as you sir mentioned about the LDL level of 50, they have also noted, and they have categorized one category of patient as highly, very high risk patients who are having coronary artery disease and on maximum therapy of statin continue to have chest pain. Then in those, the LDL level they have categorized to 55. That less than 55 should be. So lower the lipid, better.
But I'll add one thing here. I personally always try to keep a balance. I'm not pro-statin unnecessarily because we do pharmacovigilance. So there are statin causes sudden cardiac arrest. So nobody will agree, but because we always say that this patient had died because of the underlying ASVD, not because of the statin, because statin, they inhibit the Q10 enzyme in mitochondria, and that causes damage of the cardiac muscle, and deaths have been reported. So, like it causes myopathy or a neuropathy, but we have to keep a balance, and because patient is otherwise also dying, so we justify the use of a high dose statin. That is
one more, Dr. Jamil has already mentioned, that we have different types of statins, starting from simvastatin, lovastatin, pitavastatin, pravastatin, atorvastatin. The only thing is that evidence is in favor of simvastatin and more in atorvastatin recently. Most of the trials they have used, and then rosuvastatin of course. But those patients who are developing myalgia, one of the methods is to alternate therapy, means that you switch over to pitavastatin or pravastatin, and the incidence is very less. And one more thing, that calcium scoring, which is underutilized. And the only point is that when we send our patient for calcium scoring, then they do whole of the CT angio, and the patient is unnecessarily exposed to radiation. Once the calcium score is 0 to 100, then there is no need of doing angio.
So we find more convenient to get the angio done.
So in Western countries, there was a screening tool to do the calcium scoring in patients, and of course interval thickness also. One point about the new onset diabetes in patients who are receiving statin, because this area has been had too much. And just I put one evidence that the Jupiter trial is involved more than 11,000 patients, and they found that in 6,000 patients who had no you can say pre-diabetes or you can say impaired glucose fasting, they did not develop any diabetes. Only patients who had risk factors, 11,000 patients who had risk factors, out of those 44 developed new onset diabetes, but at the same time 164 lives were saved statistically.
Very nice.
So
Very
that's
fully
why
agree with
that if the patient is a candidate for statin, give statin.
Give statin. I fully agree, because NODM is a word
Risk factor is there.
is used these days. But my take is again same, that in our own trial, which my student is going to present today, that it's affecting adipsin. So when the adipsin is decreased, insulin is decreased. So this is a correlation we found. Plus it inhibits the calcium entry into the beta cells of islet, and the insulin release is affected. So four mechanisms have been established to cause diabetes in this, but still we have to see that the balance is very good.
So we would like to thank our Now I'm privileged to call upon Professor Asif Hassan, a very dynamic cardiologist and a very brilliant academic cardiology from Chandigarh, Chandigarh, and is at Indian Center of Cardiology and pursuing cardiac care functions.
Okay.
So just to mention that over in a period of 6 months, he has done more than 700 interventions.
Okay.
So we have a academically, administratively, he is very sound. So
Great, great.
it's my privilege to introduce him. And he will be speaking on deranged metabolic milieu, drugs and key. Professor Asif.
Thank you. After two very illustrative lectures on diabetes and lipids, now we come to another thing, that is the interface of so many biochemical abnormalities, and it is almost a sort of syndrome. That we use the word drugs and key because it is an interface of so many problems which are taking place at systemic level. And it is a key. If we try to understand, we will be able to solve not only one disease, but a host of the disease across so many systems of the body. So, now definition loosely, it is a constellation of metabolic abnormality that often increase risk of cardiovascular disease and diabetes mellitus. This was the definition loosely given according to NCEP 83 protocol. Alternative terms, there are so many terms which have been used. The metabolic syndrome is still more popular because it shows that the deadly quadrat insulin resistance syndrome by different names which is mentioned. But the major feature, there are four major features are that we have to find the central obesity, the android type of obesity, high level of triglyceride, low level of good cholesterol, that is LDL, hyperglycemia or dysglycemia, hypertension. And it was found that most of the patient metabolic syndrome, most common feature was hypertension followed by dyslipidemia, and number 3 was diabetes. So we have to see whether, and they are already established risk factor for vascular event. So metabolic syndrome, although it is just an addition of all those risk factors, it is much more than that. It was found that metabolic syndrome, the risk is much more than the addition of all these factors put together. It has been definitely shown that it is a predictor of that is cardiovascular or cerebrovascular events. And overall prevalence in US was 22%, loosely in India and global level it is 15 to 50%. As Sir pointed out in last lecture, even overweight adolescents, and it has been found that we may meet some of the criteria for metabolic syndrome. Why is it important? Important because it is linked to so many basic biochemical abnormalities. It is an interface of physiologists and cardiologists and endocrinologists and pharmacologists and so many other systems and doctors who have been involved linked to insulin resistance, increased risk of type 2 diabetes mellitus, fatty liver, severe several type of cancer, especially colon and breast cancer, even malignancy also. So it is a widespread multi-system involvement of the vascular. It is not only limited to vascular. And risk of cardiovascular disease, even CHF, was found to be more than 2 to 3 times in metabolic syndrome. And outside vascular event, it is found to be associated with non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, liver cirrhosis, cancer, colorectal cancer, gout, stroke, and already I have mentioned all the host of vascular abnormalities which may include vascular disease also. So another problem can be in the form of increased carotid edema media thickness, albuminuria, psychological sexual problem, and the basic level is at the endothelial dysfunction, decreased level of arginine and nitric oxide, depression, and this is the systemic which can affect every vessel and lead to widespread direct manifestation of metabolic syndrome. So there are two definitions are given to the we follow these. So there are some common features in them. One is the abdominal central obesity, and this is the circumference at the level of waist 102 cm, male, female 88 cm, high level of triglycerides, low level of LDL, high level of blood pressure, and this high fasting glucose. And this is according to National Cholesterol Education Program 83 panel, which was published in Java. So these are the four important things. One is hypertension, other impaired, even if it is not overly diabetic, impaired fasting glucose, impaired glucose tolerance test can also be included in this, and triglycerides and low HDL, along with central type of obesity. So these were found to be the more important feature which were initially claimed to be part of metabolic syndrome. And similarly, in another definition, we follow the International Diabetic Federation, we found the same thing, that is a male and female, all the values will slightly differ, but the central waist circumference was increased along with these features of dyslipidemia, triglyceride, cholesterol, blood pressure, and sugar. So this is the way to take waist circumference. Look at the upper hip bone and top of right leg rest. You have place the measuring tape in horizontal plane and abdomen and erect plane. And the tape should not snug and should not compress the skin. And this measurement should be done very properly and a very simple test which can be done in OPD chambers also. So pathogenesis, we found that not only biochemical and insulin resistance, there was a decreased level of adiponectin level, which is a sort of anti-inflammatory cytokine. So central obesity is a keystone for the pathogenesis of metabolic syndrome, and it is not a certain sort of degenerative condition. It is a very active subclinical inflammatory state, subclinical systemic inflammatory state, and large number of inflammatory factors are found to be there, such as interleukin 1, 6, 18, resistant, human necrosis factor alpha, high level of highly sensitive CRP protein, and adiponectin, which is an anti-inflammatory cytokine, is found to be reduced in the cases of metabolic syndrome. So it is quite a level of subclinical inflammation, and which is affecting various systems of the body at the same time. So always this metabolic syndrome is a combination of metabolomics, which is superimposed on proteomics, that is the amino acid and fatty acids, and underlying genomics. The abnormal gene which pushes the person towards more prothrombotic or more towards dyslipidemia. So this is genetic factor right from the level of genetic programming, excessive diet and take less of exercise, ultimately transform to insulin resistance, which transform to high insulin level, high level of insulin GF1 level, and similarly, that type of visceral obesity, that is chronic inflammation, resistant leptin, a host of inflammatory mediators, which can be measured very easily. Number 3, there can be immune system or endocrine system cannot remain immune, and it secondly involves neuroadrenergic axis also. There is activation of sympathetic parasympathetic system and hypothalamic pituitary adrenal dysregulation, which lead to high level of cortisol, low level of growth hormone, hypogonadism, and abnormality renal angiotensin system. This is another component which is ultimately transforming into metabolic syndrome. Then finally, because of endothelial dysfunction, decreased level of nitric oxide associated dyslipidemia, and finally transforms into lot of variety of vascular events. Now, how to diagnose? That is, we can follow any criteria, that is International Diabetic Federation criteria is followed. There is any history of obstructive sleep apnea. There is a recent addition that many patients will be suffering from decreased sleep and irritability. History of especially females, polycystic ovarian, and there are some menstrual problems which lead to host of psychological and sexual problems. Family history, as pointed out last lecture, as premature CAD, diabetes, hypertension, cerebrovascular events. Then we can suspect clinically, and on with the history examination, we can fill up and we can see with the help of some investigation whether we are dealing with this patient metabolic syndrome or not. So we have to do all these tests as proceeded as per the patient profile. But it is not bereft of any controversies. One is there is a lot of confusion created because of various definitions, what to follow, what not. And cutoff limits are defined without any sufficient epidemiological data. There was a question whether it is adding much more than what we know. What we know about hypertension, risk of cardiovascular disease, we know diabetes and risk of cardiovascular disease. Whether it is just a addition or whether it is much beyond that. It was found it is not an absolute risk indicator. It does not involve 4 important parameters which have been proven beyond doubt. No mention of smoking, no mention of age, no mention of LDL. And LDL is one important atherogenic particle. There is a type of, even if it is LDL level is normal, there can be qualitative effect in LDL. LDL can be pro-atherogenic type, it can be oxidized LDL. And Indian patients, several Southeast Asian type of dyslipidemia, diabetic retinopathy, high triglyceride, low LDL. And you see a report which said LDL is normal, but LDL is qualitatively very bad. There can be type A, type B particles, and it can be more atherogenic particles, which are small, dense LDL, which are more prone to prothrombotic events. Then we found that these patients have a high level of advanced glycosylation end products, AGE, because of oxidation reduction injury. And they destroy the cell membranes and they lead to large number of vascular events and premature events. Raised level of the non-enzymatic glycation. It is rare. It has been also found to correlate with lot of terminal or clinical events. I have mentioned level of cytokine, interleukin. Now focusing on non-HDL cholesterol, ApoB versus ApoA1 ratio. That is it is a balance of pro and anti-atherogenic components. And increased level of fatty acids. Then there is a central obesity, a visceral fat, which is dysfunctional visceral fat. There is an intracellular deposition of fats, and they are cardiotoxic. There is a large number of fatty acids liberated and visceral cell membrane. And these all have cardiotoxicity and their secondary effect on neuroadrenergic axis. So So this ultimately lead to state of macrophage activation syndrome, and finally transform into platelet aggregation and thrombocythemia and transform into vascular event. So susceptibility factors are, in the case of metabolic syndrome, the adipose tissue disorder. It is at the basic level of insulin signaling defect, or HT, hypothalamic pituitary adrenal dysregulation, transformed to cellular level of mitochondrial dysregulation, superimposed with physical inactivity, vascular factor, and on genome, no one can ignore that what is the genomic profile of that patient predisposing to a metabolic syndrome, whether it is individual or whether it is ethnic variation. So it is a host of genome, environmental, metabolic, which ultimately club into metabolic syndrome. So therapeutic already covered partially, still will focus on this, starts with overweight, obesity and physical inactivity. I think it is already covered in the last lecture. Treat risk factor, it has been very well covered, and I totally agree with the guidelines said by Professor Rehan, that we have to follow that. And we have to follow non-ideal, 190, 160, 130, less than 100. If the person that suffer from acute coronary syndrome, it should be less than 70, and then lower the better. If we can continue with high dose statins and keeping in view the side effects and LGBT and CPK-MM level, it can be even below 40, 50. But we have to balance the risk, and then we have to focus on the hypertension and cardiovascular prevention. So the integrated approach should be there, because it is at the center of complex network of cardiovascular risk factors which are beyond traditional risk factors. Screening, diagnosis, prevention and treatment. So after lifestyle modification, focus on food. Very difficult to answer what to eat, not to eat, but Mediterranean type diet, nothing. There should be balanced diet, more green diet, more colored diet, avoid oil. It has been emphasized in the last lecture. And physical activity. Then appetite suppressant, I will not say that, I will not advocate for appetite suppressant, they are too dangerous, they should not be advocated. But in morbid obesity, very easy to say that you walk into exercise, person cannot walk. His weight is 120, 130 kilograms, and only bariatric surgery comes to help in such patient, because it's very impractical. Even he may not be taking too many calories, but already he has surpassed that stage. And we should seriously think about bariatric surgery. Those patients have most of problems, sleep apnea, hypertension, hyperuricemia, osteoarthritis. Only bariatric surgery is as important as CABG surgery in the left lung disease of cardiac patient, because only this surgery will bail out the patient, and then he can follow lifestyle modification. At this stage, he cannot, it is impractical, he will be able to even walk few steps. So bariatric surgery is very effective, and we see follow-up of the patient. The excessive obesity and BMI more than 45. Then HDL cholesterol, already mentioned, that is a good cholesterol, walking, there is no specific drug, but we should not be obsessed with particular drug for HDL. It is a part of the correcting the lipid profile. Niacin has been shown some benefit. LDL cholesterol already covered, I totally go with last lecture. Blood pressure, more important, if there is no specific thing, then in the metabolic syndrome, we will guide the therapy, that which antihypertensives are better, and AC inhibitors have been found to be much better. If you are at all going to select over beta blocker or calcium blocker are good. And then in diuretic, chlorthalidone has been found in ELHART trial. Although we have to see the risk of prolonged therapy in the statin, and they can also lead to some metabolic increased uric acid, electrolyte abnormalities. But these three, chlorthalidone and AC inhibitors and calcium blockers, they are found as slight better edge as antihypertensive in patients with metabolic syndrome. Insulin resistance, right from metformin, biogonides, and thiazolidinedione, they have been found to be effective in metabolic syndrome. They are insulin sensitizer, they may help us out. And optimal glycemic control, avoiding hypoglycemia. Even a single episode of hypoglycemia can trigger prothrombotic event. It is not just a fall of blood sugar, it can trigger loss of, it can create prothrombotic environment, and it can precipitate MI, it can precipitate stroke. Even serious episode of hypoglycemia is very dangerous, and it activates the sympathetic system. So we should not be obsessed with correcting high sugar, we should be very cautious, and we should be slightly flexible in controlling sugar in patients who are on edge with wide blood sugar fluctuations. Low is also very dangerous. Not very rigid blood sugar control is advisable. So, and as mentioned in the first lecture, the micro and macrovascular complication, if the diabetes is there, a metabolic syndrome, and there is some evidence of inflammatory activity, and diabetes more than 5 years, we calculate the risk, 5-year, 10-year cumulative risk, or lifelong risk. Then, to avoid these complications, ecosprin therapy is also justified with statins. Ecosprin therapy is start giving the diabetics who are for 5 years, 10 years, we should give it ecosprin and statin, although they may not be having any overt cardiovascular manifestation and their lipid profile may be well controlled, but then also ecosprin is antiplatelets justified in such patients to prevent secondary prevention. Thank you.